chronic illness is so much mental. Like, you have to have a positive attitude. You have to like be rah rah go team, and that's the only way that I can get by on a daily basis. That it's like, you know, that it's gonna get better, that it's gonna get you know, some of the problems are gonna get fixed, you know, maybe not all of them, but at least some kind of help. I had to go run errands for work. I had to go to the bank and the post office and whatnot. And like, I was doing pretty okay when I left. And then I almost got sick on the way to the bank, almost got sick at the bank, almost got sick twice on the way home. I took extra anti-nausea stuff, but holy shit balls. I hate it when it happens like that. And it's like 99 out today, and I'm in the car with no air conditioning on, and like, I'm that whole like half hot half cold thing, and like I have goosebumps everywhere. Oh, that is the most horrible feeling. Oh my gosh, eating is so overrated. Blech. And all I've eaten today is several peanuts. That's it. Seems like a joke, doesn't it? Okay, that's all I have. Bye. So I'm at GI today, and it's the follow-up after the last round of stuff we did last month, trying to see if we could get my large intestine to start moving things, if it would make it easier for my stomach so I could eat more. And unfortunately that's not happening, so we're gonna talk other options and see what the next step is, so I'll keep you posted. Okay, you guys, I'm home. I've been home for several hours now. I guess just kind of trying to process the appointment because it didn't go as I expected it to, which is sometimes hard. Okay, so I have tons of GI problems. I have esophageal dysmotility, which means I have trouble swallowing. I have gastroparesis, which means my stomach doesn't move food properly. So it sits in my stomach and then it goes bad. My small intestine is still good, and then I have severe large intestine intestinal dysmotility as well. So everything's broke at the top and everything's broke at the bottom. When I was at my last appointment, and I've got other problems too, like I have a circulation problem to my stomach. I have something else called MALS, which is like a ligament is too tight around my stomach, and so that makes it harder too. I don't know a whole heck of a lot about that one because that's one of the latest diagnoses that I've had. So my last GI appointment, which was 5-6 weeks ago, somewhere around a month, we had a big appointment, or a big conversation, I guess, between myself, and I have a head GI, and then I have a associate GI, which is like a physician's assistant that sometimes I see too. So we all, I think last time I actually saw my big GI, and we talked about all the problems and about what we can do to try to make it easier because of how much trouble my large intestine has processing anything. We decided to try to take care of that problem first, because I have food sits in my system, and if it makes it past my stomach, go team. It gets all the way to my large intestine, and then it sits there and it goes bad, and I feel poisoned almost all the time. So like, food to me is poison. Food is not fun. It hasn't been fun for a long time. I don't remember what it's like to feel hungry. A lot of days water can upset my system, so it's really, really rough. So at the last appointment, we decided to try all sorts of things to see if we can get my large intestine to kind of get half a brain again. And lots of trials and errors. I don't do well with a lot of meds. I have a lot of side effects off of them. And so we tried something called Linzess, and it was almost like it was too much and not enough all at the same time. It did not work well with my body, so we stopped that one after about 3 weeks. They wanted to automatically change me into something else called Amitiza, but it's really hard to convince me to take more meds coming off of side effects off of something else. So we took about a week off, and then I was right back to square one of being miserable, and so we started the Amitiza, and so now I'm taking Amitiza twice a day to try to move my food along. I also do Miralax every other day, and some other stuff, but it ended up being a misconception on somebody's part, right hand, left hand, to know who was doing what. So we did all of that for however long it was, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. And then I go back today, and at the last appointment when we were talking about it, and they were like, you know, this is kind of the last hoorah before we start talking feeding tubes. And so with how things were going, and the point of trying to get all of my large intestine to move things along is that if we could do that and like a trickle effect, that it would be easier on my stomach, that I could eat more, that I could tolerate more food. And unfortunately that is not what's happening. It's not making any difference on my stomach. My stomach's not moving any faster. And so I go in today expecting to talk about feeding tubes, with expectations are kind of scary sometimes. Sometimes you have hope because of your expectations, or you have the opposite effect, and sometimes it's really, really hard to process when an appointment doesn't go as you expect it to, and you're kind of thrown for a loop. It's happened so many times for me. Like, I try not to have expectations for doctor appointments, but sometimes you do anyways. It's just kind of the name of the game. So I go into the appointment today, and I was supposed to meet my PA today. And so I'm supposed to, my thought of is that we're going to be talking about, you know, is there anything else that we can do? And then let's start talking feeding tubes. And everybody that I have talked to, even like in my GI team, all of that, like, they're always like, oh, feeding tubes. Like, they make it sound horrible. And I get what they're coming from. But I guess people that say that a lot, like, they don't come from a place where I'm coming from, that like food is the enemy. And eating is so stressful that, I mean, every single day, like, and I'm supposed to be eating 6 times a day or something like that, and I can barely handle eating twice a day, no matter how small the meal is. And it's so stressful because my weight is still going down. And so anyways, I digress. So I go into the appointment expecting to talk about feeding tubes. So I go in, and I've got my list of questions ready to go, you know, and my kind of informational platter of what has happened since the last appointment. And I start talking to my PA and telling her, you know, how things are going and whatnot. And she made a comment about, because I was like, you know, what's the next step? Because I said, I'm just slowly but surely like going downhill, and what is the next step? Like, where do we go from here? Because all of the things that I've tried, you know, in the last 5-6 weeks are not making, you know, these, excuse me, huge differences. And she was like, well, there really isn't a lot to go from here. And I'm thinking, well, people with gastroparesis aren't just like shoved into the hospice and like tell, you know, make the rest of your time good. Like, of course there's other options. And I think maybe possibly perhaps she was saying that she didn't, like, there wasn't many more oral medication options.
it was just kind of strange. So I just kind of started asking about feeding tubes and what kinds and whatever, because most everything that I've seen so far is most places like you get an NJ first, see how you tolerate it, see how you tolerate the feeds, blah, 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 before you go through the whole, you know, abdominal surgery and whatnot. And so I started talking to her, and she said they're actually of the opposite frame of mind, that they don't want you to have to go through all of the trauma that you can have, you know, ENT whatnot wise, with a tube, and they normally just go straight for like a GJ, which goes into your abdomen, and then one port goes to your stomach and one port goes to your jejunum. And so that kind of threw me for a loop. Not good or bad, it just obviously wasn't what I was expecting her to say. And when I see my PA, I specifically make appointments for days that my big GI is there too. So because I'm complicated, they normally confer and we, you know, talk about it and whatever. So she goes out for a few minutes and then she comes back. And so my GI and I and the PA were all talking about options and what's next and whatnot. And then all of a sudden there's like all sorts of other like oral medication options. And I'm just like, well, you know, why didn't we do this stuff before? And there wasn't a real good answer to it. And I already take so much medication, like the idea of adding just more and more medication into it, just, oh my gosh, like it threw me so hard. And, you know, I'm expecting the appointment to go one direction, and then it totally goes in opposite direction. And so now they want me to add 2 more meds on top of the 8,000 bazillion meds that I'm already taking. And so now I have to wait. So I have to add these 2 meds starting tomorrow. And I finally took my last antibiotic tonight, praise the Lord. And so now, so they were like, and then we want to see you back in 4 weeks. And it's just like, it's crushing sometimes when you're expecting one thing and then you're handed another, and like you're putting your faith in these medical people that they know what's best for you. And I absolutely understand like where they're coming from, that, you know, the oral medication, obviously, you know, it's less invasive. You don't have to have surgery. You know, hopefully you can find a more natural fix to it and whatnot. I have been having GI issues for 15 years now. It has been horrible for 9, almost debilitating for 2. And like, I'm just slowly but surely losing weight. And it's just like, it almost feels like it's putting off the inevitable. And it's just, it's making me wait weeks and weeks more for the same outcome. And I always have a positive attitude. Like, it's always the glass is more than half full. And, you know, maybe they have magically figured out some amazingness in the 5-6 weeks that I've been there the last time. But it just seems so odd that no information of any of this stuff last time, and now here's 2 more, and then there's 2 more that I can try even after these 2. But one, like the potential side effects were horribly scary. And I'm like the queen of side effects. And so something that has like ridiculously severe consequences if you have side effects off of this medication, it's almost like adding insult to injury. Let's not fix your problem and give you something else that you have to deal with too. And so it's all, and something I really appreciated from my GI today, and she was like, you know, we want to be very forthcoming with you. We want you to know, you know, all of your options, you know, good, bad, and otherwise, you know, and we have very, very frank conversations about potential side effects and potential problems. And that I really appreciated. It was just, I don't know, it felt kind of crushing that it was like I finally had like my head wrapped around what I thought the next step was, and now it's like 4 steps down the road. It's like somebody keeps moving my finish line. That's how I feel. Like mentally, that's how I feel. And that chronic illness is so much mental. Like, you have to have a positive attitude. You have to like be rah rah go team, and that's the only way that I can get by on a daily basis. That it's like, you know, that it's gonna get better, that it's gonna get you know, some of the problems are gonna get fixed, you know, maybe not all of them, but at least some kind of help. So going into it with this positive attitude and then having it kind of like yanked away and like shoved in another direction, it's super hard for me to process sometimes. So I was super grouchy and the boyfriend had to make me ungrouchy. This is not an easy journey. It's not like it's not simple, you know. It's almost like a labyrinth, you know, like you're just trying to find your way and then there's roadblocks you didn't even know about. It's just frustrating sometimes. So, you know, and I can tell myself not to have expectations going into appointments, and, you know, you want to be able to have complete confidence and faith in all of your medical professionals that you have over your care, because if you don't trust them, they do not need to be on your medical team. But it's just, it's a process, and I totally get that and I understand it, and still hard for my mind, you know, to wrap my mind around sometimes. So we'll start new meds tomorrow again, and hope I can get everything evened out and whatnot. Then we'll go back in a month and we'll see how it goes again. Rawr. I just want something to be easy. And I know that's unrealistic, but, you know, a little bit of fairy dust and, you know, unicorn sprinkles and whatnot would really not hurt my feelings at the moment. So I'm gonna go take a bath. I'm gonna wash the day away, and hopefully tomorrow will be even more fabulouser, and who knows, maybe the meds will be magic and I can not have to deal with the feeding tube and still gain weight and all the rest of it. So I'll keep y'all posted. So if anybody else is dealing with this, let me know how it's going. And the med that I'm supposed to be on, it's another anti-nausea med to try to keep everything down. That's one of them. It's like Remeron or something, R-E-M-E-R-O-N. If anybody has used it before, if it's good, bad, you know, what do you think of it? Let me know below, and we'll keep going on our journey. So I'll see y'all later.